Right, so let's start off by just deleting this track that we don't need for the robot. So let's just turn the armature back on. Robot selected, well the armature is selected rather. We're going to choose the track here that we don't want, so just press it in the left hand side and then press X, that'll delete it. So we're just left with the walk cycle, just to tidy things up a bit, not 100% necessary, but it's always a good idea to keep things tidy. So we'll go to the layout panel now. What I want to do is add the HDRI back in, just the same as we did earlier. So I'm going to go to the shader editor, just bring this one up, put it in world view, and I need to do this of course because this is a fresh scene that we use just for the motion tracking. So Shift A, S, environment texture, drop this in, making sure the node wrangler is installed still, Control T, and that will create these for us, so we can rotate the HDRI. And we'll use the same HDRI that we used earlier, which was the Reichstag one, because it's a similar lighting environment to the actual video footage that we've got here. So bring that one in. I'm just going to go with 8K because we only want it for the lighting. We don't need to be able to see the HDRI at all. So put that in there. And if we go to rendered view, we should now see the HDRI in the background. And of course, make sure we're in cycles and GPU so it's nice and fast. And now we can move on to just tweaking these materials a little bit and adding the materials to the joints as well. So we'll come out of camera view, we'll zoom in on the robot, let's make it a little bit bigger for the materials. In fact, let's separate this into two. We can turn off the overlays now. I don't really want to see this triangle anymore, so let's hide that. We don't want to render it either, so let's disable that in the render, in the outliner here. Right. So just to make this a little bit easier, we'll start putting these parts into their own containers. So I'm going to, let's just turn on overlay so you can see what I'm selecting. I'll turn off the armature so it's not interrupting the view. Right. So if I click an object, like this leg for example, it should have the same material as all the other body parts. So if I press Shift L, press material, so we choose material, it should select all the objects that use that same material. And if I press M, we can put those into a new collection, and I'll just call this body parts. And now in the body parts, I'll just hide it from the view so we can make sure we've got all the bits we need. So I can see we've not actually got materials on the arms yet, so let's select these, or the hands. Now we'll just temporarily bring the body parts back. And I'll shift click on the leg, which has got the correct material. So Control L. And now we can link the materials. And it will apply the material of this to all the objects we've got selected. And now I'll just hide the body parts again. And I'll press M with these parts still selected. And we'll put those into the body parts as well, so they disappear. This is going to leave us with just the joints that we've not yet added materials to. So I'll select all of those. I'll go into wireframe just to make sure that I get all the selection that I want. I'm going to put these into their own container as well. So M, we'll create a new container, we'll call this one joints. And now we'll create a new material for the joints as well. So go back into rendered mode. I'll shift click on one of them. I'll come to the object mode now of the shader editor. You can see we've got no material on here yet, so I'll click new. And I'll just make this a metallic material. So we'll turn up metallic, and then we'll turn roughness down. Maybe make it a little bit darker as well. Something like that. And then with all these still selected, I'm going to press Control L for the link menu, and just say link materials from the active object to the other selected objects. And there you go. I'll come over here, I'll just press minus over the outliner, and that will minimize it for us. I'll probably give the shoes a different material, so I'm going to click this shoe, and I'm going to press this, where it says 14, that's how many objects are currently using this material. I'll just rename it first. We'll name it Chrome. I'll press the 14, and whichever object I've got selected will then get a new copy of this, which is unique. So press that, and you can see that 14's disappeared. So this shoe has now got its own material. And I'll apply this to this shoe as well. So Control L, link materials. Now they've both got this new object, and I'll just call this shoe metal. And maybe make this even darker, just so it's a little bit different from the others. Maybe a bit shinier as well. There we go. So we can bring back the rest of it now. And I also want to tweak the mouth a little bit. I don't think that's a very good material. So I'm just going to give it a bit of transmission. So it gives it more of a see-through feel. I'll turn the transmission up a little bit. I'll turn the roughness right down. Just tweak this transmission a bit as well. Maybe give it a bit of clear coat as well. And now we can turn, because we've got the clear coat, we can turn the roughness up a little bit. Maybe turn that transmission roughness up a tad as well. And in the clear coat, I want to use the same normals that we're using for the rest of it. So plug this into the clear coat. And now we're getting that on there as well. Maybe turn that strength up a little actually. Let's try 2. Maybe go a little bit higher on the transmission. And maybe turn down the IOR. So the IOR controls how refracted things are, so how much the light is getting bent inside. For example, if I set this to 1, then it's just going to be see-through. There's going to be no sort of bending of the light inside. So I'll turn it up to maybe 1 point, let's see, 1 point. Let's go something like that. So it's more of a plasticky feel rather than glass. Let's change that colour from orange to red. So in Blender 4, I'll just cover it very quickly. I know we've already covered the difference between Blender 3.6 and Blender 4 materials, but I'll just show you again in case you've skipped that part. So for the lips, we're going to use the transmission. We'll turn this up a bit, same as before. But this time we've no longer got IOR and roughness separate for the transmission and the glossiness, so we have to control it here. So I'll just manipulate the roughness until I get the amount of blurriness that I want. I'll turn it down a little bit. And then the IOR, same as before, bring this down so we can see the shape more clearly of the objects behind the lips. Maybe something like that. And then because we've no longer got a separate roughness for the glossiness and the transmission, we need to do the glossy roughness in the coat. So turn the coat weight up, so it's glossy. And now we need to be able to see the same normals from the normal map. So I'm going to plug this into the coat's normal input. And now we should be able to see the normals on the glossy coat as well. And then I'll just modify the colour like before. And the last thing I want to do for the materials is just to make this, I want to add a bit of contrast here. So I'll select this middle part, this part here, the inside bit, and I'm going to make this a rubber. So let's just rename Material 03 to Robot Body. And then I'm going to press the number 44 to make it unique to the currently selected object. And then I'll make this more of a rubber feel, so I'll make it dark. And then we'll turn the roughness up a bit as well. Maybe a bit darker than that. Maybe about here. You should never go full black because that's unrealistic. You've always got a bit of, nothing's ever full black in real life. So about here. Just to add a bit of contrast. I think otherwise it looks too samey all the way through. So I think that's looking really good. And we can now move on to animating the lips to some sound.